In this video, we'll be counting down the most surprising things that you shouldn't wear while flying, saving the most surprising yet common ones for the end. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this channel is all about practical travel advice from someone who's been there, done that. So be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. Now, before we start, I will say comfort is everything, and that's a highly personal choice, so these are just some general things to avoid. And don't worry, I'm not going to be saying things like jeans, because I know that jeans can be comfy too, so you do you. Now let's start with a very common and basic one, which is claw clips and other big hair accessories. Especially in the past few years, I think claw clips have made quite the resurgence, but they aren't really that great for flying. Not only are they uncomfortable on headrests, I have read enough horror stories about why you shouldn't be wearing claw clips while you're driving to think I would probably avoid them altogether anytime there's potential for things like turbulence or impact. Same goes for big chunky headbands or anything like that, because they can obviously get in the way of things like headphones, or some of them may have metal bits to them that can potentially be picked up by the detectors at airport security. Instead, I would opt for something soft like a scrunchie if you want to keep your hair up, or if the goal is just to hide your roots, which I get, maybe something like a baseball cap would make more sense. On a similar note, I would also avoid any large accessories, so things like chunky jewelry or belts. This is firstly for comfort, because let's face it, who wants a big belt digging into their stomachs while they're flying, or jewelry getting snagged on all sorts of things? But the second reason is of course for ease in security. While small pieces of jewelry like rings are usually fine, you do need to remove belts and any larger, bulkier pieces of jewelry, especially ones that contain metal. So just to save yourself the hassle when it comes to airport security, just choose an outfit that doesn't require these components. And as with everything I'm listing in this video, I learned this the hard way at the ripe age of 10 when I wore some super cool denim capris with a built-in belt, which promptly got me searched very thoroughly by a TSA agent, and I never wore a belt again. I think we probably all have airport fail stories like this, so if you have one, be sure to share them in the comments below so that your fellow travelers can learn from your mistakes. The next one is a big one that is so common, and that is synthetic fibers, meaning all kinds of man-made fibers like polyester, nylon, acrylic, spandex, etc. And this is because in extreme cases like fire, yes, all fibers can burn, but synthetic fibers in particular are ones that can melt onto your skin, which is obviously, in case of a disaster, not great. And I know that this seems paranoid, but personally, when I travel, I always keep in mind the worst case scenario, and I plan for that. And it looks like I'm not the only one. Even the official Government of Canada website says the following: synthetic blend fabrics ignite quickly, shrink, melt, and continue to burn even after the heat source is removed. So they also advise not wearing synthetic fabrics on board. So yes, be sure to check the labels on your clothes to prioritize 100% natural materials just in case. When it comes to natural fibers, you of course have many different options, but my personal recommendation here would be my favorite travel material, which is of course merino wool, that has tons of other benefits that make it absolutely perfect for flying. So on that note, this week's video is brought to you by Unbound Merino, a great Canadian company that specializes in versatile merino wool products that honestly lend themselves perfectly to the unpredictable temperatures of flying. And I'm wearing them right now. If you're new to merino wool, not only is this material super breathable and naturally resistant to odors and bacteria, which means it stays fresher for longer, it also works double duty depending on the temperature. So wicking moisture and keeping you cool when it's too hot, and keeping heat in when it's too cold. And if you've ever been on a plane, you know that temperatures are really a roll of the dice. I started wearing merino wool on long haul flights last year, and it really has been a huge game changer. I used to always launder my outfits immediately after a long flight, but merino wool can stay fresh even after a long haul, which I love because it means I don't feel as gross even after 10 hours in the air. And I can then rewear those items on the trip without needing to wash them, which is really key because I travel carry-on only a lot at the time. In addition to all those perks, in terms of a worst case scenario, wool is actually naturally more flame resistant than other natural fibers as well, like cotton, so that's good for some additional ease of mind. Add-on resistance to stains and wrinkles too, and it really is the perfect material for flying and travel in general. Plus a lot of their goods can be woven really thin and can be very versatile, like this dress that I'm wearing right now. So if you want to try it out for yourself, be sure to check out their full collection at unboundmerino.com and use the code Christina10 for 10% off your first purchase. Thanks again to Unbound Merino for sponsoring this week's video. Now let's continue with another common item to avoid wearing on your flight, which is any one piece like a romper or a jumpsuit. As cute as they are, rompers and jumpsuits are generally bad ideas for flying because of a very simple reason, which is that you basically need to get naked anytime you want to use the bathroom. Now this is of course not something we want to be doing in an airplane bathroom, so avoid those one pieces. In addition to that, when it comes to security checks, sometimes secondary screenings will require them to check all over, including waistbands, so ensuring not everything is connected in one piece can really make your life a lot easier. Instead, I would opt for separate tops and bottoms that make going to the bathroom a breeze. Next, let's talk about shoes. Beyond the obvious shoes to avoid like high heels, which firstly aren't comfortable to fly in, and secondly do need to be taken off in case of any emergency, so I would avoid them. I would also avoid lace-up shoes that require you to untie and tie them every time. There are so many different reasons for this. If you're on a long haul flight and want to discreetly take off your shoes for a few hours, with socks on, of course, you animals, then you will want something that you can slip on and off really easily. This will also make your life much easier when going through airport security. Although many no longer require you to take off your shoes when you're going through security, sometimes they do, especially if you have bulkier ones, so being able to slip them on and off is really, really handy. That said, I would also generally avoid flip-flops or sandals. Some people avoid these because of airplane filth and bacteria. Honestly, I don't think that's as much of a concern as the fact that they just wouldn't be very good in case of an emergency. I've also heard flight attendants say that these kinds of shoes should be avoided just because they slide off way too easily and are tough to move in quickly if anything happens. So better just to pick comfortable, closed-toed shoes that are easy to stay mobile in. Now let's move on to clothes. First, I would avoid tight, non-stretchy garments of any kind. Airplanes are a weird place, and weird things happen to your body while you're flying, so you can swell up, you can get bloated from all the airplane food, and your body just a lot of the time doesn't know what to do with itself. So the last thing you want is to be stuck in a super tight, non-stretchy outfit that gets really uncomfortable throughout the course of your flight. For this reason, I personally don't wear jeans, but if you have a comfy pair that lets you breathe, then go for it. Just know that you want something that's not going to be particularly restrictive around the belly area. Now, as I mentioned before, you should be prioritizing comfortable, breathable clothes. But one item I would try to really avoid would be any long, loose, flowy bottoms, especially anything that can drag on the floor. Ideally, you should be looking for items that are more tapered at the ankle so that when you go into grosser places like the bathroom, the bottoms of your bottoms don't just drag on the wet bathroom floor and, get slathered in whatever is on there. On a similar note, I would also avoid super flowy items like big shawls or large drapey cardigans. While these do seem really cozy and comfortable, they can be a bit of a nightmare when you're reaching for things in the overhead compartments, or just in general when you're moving through the cabin. Really big flowy items can easily get in other people's way. The worst part is you might not necessarily notice that they're getting in other people's way, and so the last thing you want to do is accidentally fling your flowy cardigan in someone else's face by accident. So definitely avoid items like that. Stick to things that are a bit closer to your body so that they're less likely to get caught in things and potentially flung in other people's faces. The next thing to avoid would be items with shallow or unzippable pockets. Trust me, when you're flying, you need good pockets. There are so many different small but very, very important things that you're carrying around when you go through the airport and when you fly. Things like your passport, your boarding pass, and your phone. So the last thing you want is to drop one of these due to a lack of pockets, or worse, maybe forgetting them in random places like the seat pocket in front of you because you didn't have any pockets of your own to store your valuables. So just as a general rule, the more pockets you have on the clothes that you're wearing to the airport, the better. I personally love wearing a jacket that has a hidden pocket. I've said this a million times on my channel, but really having a very large inner pocket gives me so much ease of mind because I can just throw my phone, my passport, my boarding pass, everything in there and not have to worry. And this ties into another general safety rule that I have when I fly, which is to never leave my valuables at my seat when I get up to use the bathroom. So make sure you have pockets. That said, you should avoid having only pockets on the back of your jeans or whatever your bottoms are, because this sounds like a really great recipe for dropping your phone in the airplane toilet, which, as we've established, is not a place we want to be losing or dropping anything. Now, another weirdly common thing that people wear to the airport is anything that's white or light colored. Honestly, I would avoid this as much as possible because airplanes, turbulence, and drinks in flimsy plastic cups are a surefire recipe for random stains. And the last thing you want to do is start your vacation while scrubbing your top in the sink while crying in the airport toilet. So definitely avoid any easily stainable colors or materials. Again, merino wool is really stain resistant, so I can definitely recommend that. And be sure to opt for darker, more stain resilient shades in any case. Another common yet surprising thing I would probably avoid is wearing only short sleeves or short bottoms. Some people stick to this rule for germ reasons. For me, it's less that and more just about temperature. I always say that layering is key on planes because they can randomly be freezing. So you really do want to have layers that could cover your arms and legs fully in case you need them to. You also just never know when the seats will be scratchy or uncomfortable, or worse yet, in the case of leather seats, if you wear shorts or short sleeves, that's something that your skin will definitely stick to very uncomfortably, and you do not want that to be happening for 10 hours straight. So I really find that having long sleeves, at least as an optional layer, is really, really important. And on that note, another common item that you should avoid wearing while flying include any pullover layers. So I see people wearing pullover sweaters and hoodies on flights all the time, but I really wouldn't advise this just because airplane temperatures, again, can really vary and can be so unpredictable even throughout the course of one flight. So oftentimes on a flight, you might be in a position where you want to take off a layer or two. Trouble is, if you have neighbors, you usually don't have that much space, especially if you're sitting in economy, which I always am. But when you're in an economy seat, you don't really have much space for your arms or elbows to move around, which makes it super awkward to remove a pullover hoodie or sweatshirt. So instead, I would opt for zippered or buttoned outer layers. Finally, as a bonus one thing I would never, ever, ever wear while flying, just out of courtesy to my fellow passengers, is a strong fragrance. Remember, at the end of the day, everyone has different sensitivities to smells and different smells as well. So the perfume that you really love can easily become a nightmare for your neighbor who has to inhale it for 10 hours straight. So just be mindful of others and avoid heavy fragrances if possible. All right, I know you guys probably have some very strong opinions on what else you shouldn't be wearing on a plane, so be sure to let me know in the comments what other things you would generally avoid, and be sure to like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one. I'll see you next time. Bye!